My name is Samantha Lee, and I will be debating against sweatshops. In many places, such as China, women are 90% of the workers in the factories. This is because they are, quote, easy to manage. These women come from rural China, and they are often very poor, looking for higher salaries so that they can return back to their families with money. They move into these large cities and work in these terrible factories with very low wage. The women working in these factories stay in dormitories and eat in the canteens within the factory. The dormitories sleep 12 to 20 women. They have no storage space except for inside of their beds. Their wages would not last long outside of the factories because while the living prices have gone up, the wages have stayed the same. Many of the managers and owners that live internationally do not make the connection between the low wages and the women trying to work overtime. That they believe that with the dormitories and the canteens provided, the women should be making money and be perfectly comfortable enough to move out of the factories if they so wished. When the owners of these companies do actually visit to inspect the workplaces, the factories are given a date but no time. This still allows them to easily prepare for the visit. They prepare and warn those working in the factories not to say anything about their wages or the working conditions. False, higher wages and timesheets are printed out for the inspection. The workers are even paid to give the correct answers when they are asked about their wages and how much they work. This makes it so that it is pointless to actually inspect these factories as they are always prepared well enough. When asked about it, the owners of the company said that they have never received these reports. One seemed as though he did not quite care, and the other said that it should not happen and that they would deal with it. Yet 7 out of 9 factories do this in order to keep making money. However, the way they are paid is based on how fast they work, and there is no set minimum wage. Usually they work until 10 or 11 p.m., but they are often forced to work until dawn in order to finish. This exceeds local regulations, which is an illegal overtime. In a documentary entitled Santa's Workshop, inside China's slave labor toy factories, they were only able to interview the factory while it was running, and they were not allowed to speak to the workers. They managed to gain covert interviews in order to hear from the women about how they really felt. Even though they were unable to show their full faces, it is clear that they hated where they worked and they had no other choice. The plastic that they worked with was often upwards of 200 degrees Celsius. It was so hot that it often burned their hands despite the gloves that they were using, and it made the entire factory very hot and very difficult to breathe. There are often more serious injuries than burned skin or pinched fingers, such as fires. Fires are one of the most serious accidents that actually occur more often than you would think. One of the more serious fires occurred in a toy factory in Thailand in 1993. 188 died and 469 were injured. Most of these were the young women that came to work from the factories from their rural places. Between Thailand or China, the accidents are still often the same. These conditions leave women dizzy and ill until they faint, but they are forced to recover quickly, often with the help of other women during their lunch break, so that they can return to work and finish their day. Many women even skip meals, even cheap meals, just to save some of the money. This also adds to their illnesses and their ability to faint during the day. These conditions are approved by the managers because it creates this cheap labor in China, without which they would not have the factories there in the first place. The conditions these women are under is a form of slave labor. The work is dangerous and there is little pay. By moving to large cities, these women have no other choice but to stay and continue working. There are no competitive factories and there are no competitive wages. Any factory they could move to, whether it is a toy factory or an electronics factory or anything similar, often has these conditions just the same. While sweatshops may positively affect a country's economy, there is a greater negative against its people. When these women are asked if they would still work overtime with higher wages, the women resoundingly answered no.